What's up, y'all? I want to talk to you for a minute tonight about consistency. I was just meeting with a client about some different topics, and this came up, so I want to share it. I really think consistency is the greatest problem that every person I work with has. You know, you could talk about schedule, you could talk about lack of awareness of healthy foods, lots of other things that come up with health coaching, but the struggle of consistency is perhaps the greatest problem. And I identify with it because even though I've been doing this stuff for a long time, there's times I still struggle too. And, the different conversation, but my advice on that is always like, okay, when you do fall off the path, you have to get back on quickly. That's the antidote for letting lack of consistency destroy you. But you don't have to climb back on the path if you never fall off. And that's where consistency comes in. And I really do believe that the people who can work hard day after day after day and do the right things and really listen to that voice in their head that says, this is what I'm supposed to be doing to get to the goal that I have. The people that can do that day after day without enjoying the reward from it are the ones who really are going to own the future, the ones that are going to have the most success. And when I say enjoy the reward, well, most of the things that are the toughest to stick to are things that you have to have delayed happiness from, or delayed satisfaction from, I should say, because hopefully you should choose to be happy every day. But the satisfaction from the accomplishment is going to take a while with most things, right? If you want to be a millionaire, well, you're going to have to work, you're going to have to learn skills, you're going to have to be able to figure out how to scale things, you're going to have to probably make some good investments. It's going to take a while to get there. So you're like, I want to be a millionaire on day one. Well, how many hundreds or thousands of days from that day that you make that goal do you actually get to enjoy the satisfaction of achieving it? But even something that would take less time, like losing 50 pounds. Well, if you decide on the first day to lose 50 pounds, on average, it's going to take somewhere between 6 months and a year to get the 50 pounds off. You might be able to do it faster and take some shortcuts, or you might just be someone whose metabolism will allow for you to lose weight a little quicker. But for most people, what we see, it's going to take a while. So, but when you get to that goal, it changes your entire life. So the more life-changing the goal is when it's completed, the more you have to delay your gratitude and your satisfaction from achieving that goal and be able to work consistently through all of those days that it takes in the meantime to get there. And I think that's the thing we struggle with. And you can look at, why do we struggle with it? Well, one of the things is we've sort of been set up for failure on this by the whole modern world, the construction of modern world. You look at our entertainment. It's all been optimized to be addictive. Our phones, social media, Netflix, everything we go to entertain ourselves has been perfectly curated and optimized by people who are really good with understanding how to make us addicted. Okay, now next thing, you look at your food. Your food, modern food, processed food, has been completely engineered to be as addictive as possible with the perfect amount of fat, salt, and sugar. We evolved to be attracted to fat, salt, and sugar, so now it's so concentrated in processed foods that it becomes addictive, almost like an opiate. Okay, then you look at other parts of our lives with our schedules and things. Modern life, it's set up in such a way where so many wheels are spinning for most people. They're a parent, they have a job, they have a side hustle, they drive Uber, they drive Instacart. The gig economy and everything that we're kind of living through right now as younger adults, well, I'm not quite a younger adult anymore, but I still kind of hang in the circle, you might say, of younger adults. So those of us that are kind of coming up now and figuring out how to navigate through these earlier and middle parts of adulthood that are still kind of in our careers and having kids and stuff, it's a different world, different economy. And I'm not saying that we have it harder than our parents, certainly not, than our grandparents would have had it, but it's different. And I think it requires a different set of skills. And so when you've got every entertainment source, every food source, everything in our life that we go to when we might be stressed, all of these things are just perverting those instincts that we have, and over basically blasting our brains to create an overabundance of dopamine, which of course is the reward hormone or the motivation hormone. So we're all on overdrive all the time, and then we're burned out, and then that causes this struggle of consistency. So that's not an excuse, that's an explanation. That is part of what's causing the problem. I refuse to believe that people now are just like lazier or less attentive than former generations would have been. But I do think that in many ways, because of some of these things I've just mentioned, it makes it much harder for people to have an attention span and be consistent. Even things how many things do you start and stop all the time, and then you've got to pick it back up where you left off? That's makes it difficult. And trying to have fitness in your life, the only way it works is to be consistent. Trying to have nutrition that's good for your body and good for your weight loss, the only way it works is to be consistent. So I explain to my clients, like, if you can give a good solid 7 or an 8 of effort every day for 3 or 4 months, that's better than giving a 10 or an 11 on effort on just for doing it a week and then burning out. But we see this all the time. We see people start and they have a great beginning, and then somewhere along the way, that we have to pick them back up because they've burned out because they're so used to starting and stopping. And so we got to get ahead. Just all of us have to think about this and get ahead in every part of our life, because everything you stop after you've started with good intentions is just, you're going to have to pick that back up and figure out how you're going to finish what you started to get to your goal. And each time it becomes more frustrating in many ways because we sort of judge ourselves in that. And then you got to do the hard thing, but you've also got to deal with sort of the judgment and the shame you might put on yourself for not doing it right the first 10 times, right? So the more that we can build the discipline toward consistency, the better. So I've got a few tips on that, things that have helped me. And again, I would be lying if I said I'm always consistent. You can just ask Dana. But I'm definitely more consistent today by far than I was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was managing a $10 million health club, but I was struggling even in that way more than I am today with all of the wheels that I've spinning at this point in my life. So I've made progress, but again, I've made progress by learning from mistakes. And hopefully, some of the people I work with, I tell them, look, don't make all these same mistakes. Learn from some of the mistakes that I've made and that others that I've become close to and discussed these things with have made. So a few of the tips would be, number one, you've got to think on paper. Y'all, we have so much input every single day, and you cannot keep it in here. You just can't. And we're tempted to do it because none of us want to put our stuff down long enough to actually make a note. And then you're like, well, I'll get an app and make a note. But then you start to make the note in the app and you flip the screen because you get a notification somewhere else. So you've got to find a way that you're going to actually think on paper. And I would encourage you to think for 30 minutes a day on paper. I know that sounds like a lot, but 30 minutes per day to think on paper will help you. It'll probably save you 5 hours in execution over the course of the next few weeks. So we've got to think on paper. 2, once you do it, you've got to come back to it. You've got to look at those goals and look at those things that you're working on once in the morning and once in the evening. You got to begin your day and end your day by reminding yourself of these things that are on the horizon, things that you're working toward. Okay. The next thing I would say is you've got to make steps, right? It's not good enough to just write down, I need to lose such and such weight. You have to figure out, okay, what would be the last thing that happened to me before I reached this goal, and then reverse it. So write down the last thing and then go all the way back to where you are today. That is going to help you out in the process of planning out all the things you're going to need to do, because most big projects that we have in our life, most goals, they have a number of things, boxes that have to be checked between where we are and where we're going to be. Okay, and that kind of goes along with breaking it down into mini goals, which I'm sure everybody's heard about before now. But the idea of writing out the order of steps that it's going to take to get there will give you a great idea of where to begin. Okay, the other thing to think about on this is that you have to choose worthy goals. So many of the times we have so many, again, things going on that we start thinking of little things we want to do, or even big things, and a lot of times we don't even think through all the way, is this even important enough to make the list? If you got too long of a list, you're not going to get it done. You've got to shorten things and intensely focus on maybe the 4 things that are on your I always call it the burners, like on the stove. If you try to put more things on it than maybe 4 things, maybe 5, but I would say 4, then those other things are just not going to get done, right? So they've got to be in that main focus. And most of the time, your family and your work and your faith, if you have faith in something, those kinds of spiritual disciplines and family disciplines and work disciplines, those are going to always be on there. So then anything else like weight loss or improving your health, it might occupy that other fourth space. And that means you got to intensely focus like a laser beam on it while it's the thing. And then once that's accomplished and it goes into just maintenance mode, then you might choose the next thing. So those are some of the smaller tips. Again, we work way deeper on this in our program, individualizing it and stuff like that. But this is the kind of stuff we get into because these are often the things that our life is moving too quick to really think about. But if we can't be consistent in stuff we're working on and do it day in and day out toward these big goals, you never achieve anything. You just end up basically restarting and wheels are spinning and you're not, really ultimately getting anything done except for you're making yourself tired and probably contributing to worsening mental health and long-term outcomes. So anyway, I hope that helps a little bit today, but think about consistency and discipline and what it means in everything you're working on, whether it's fitness and health or whether it's some other big project you have going on. So I hope you all have a good rest of your night, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.